everyone. We are going to take probably just 1 or 2 minutes to let everyone get logged on. But we will be here and starting with Luftwerk as well as Troy, talking about color and culture, as well as the individual practices of the 2/3 artists. And we'll address the projects that are coming up this year and how the pandemic has affected and in some ways actually helped the process of what has been happening. Got it. So maybe let's get started because it looks like the list is getting quite big and people will log on. Welcome. My name is Catinca Tabacaru. I opened my first gallery in New York City in 2014 and then moved and started a project in Harare while that was happening. And in 2020, during the pandemic, opened the current space, which is in Bucharest. I've been working with the CTG Collective, which is a collective of curators and artists in Zimbabwe since 2015. And this is how this virtual conversation begins. We have been talking to Luftwerk for the last 2 or 3 years, I think, Sean and Petra. And we've been talking about working together and specifically in many ways, but we got very excited about the idea of bringing them to Zimbabwe and what can be done with light and color. And initially we had considered working with the existing space, which we built in Harare in 2017. And then the project expanded into its own installation/space. Which will be realized this October. So we'll talk a lot more about that as we move forward in this conversation. And then Troy, who's here with us as well, we met maybe 6 months, a year ago, and started on a big project, which I'm very excited to reveal because this is the first time we're speaking publicly about it. And it's an enormous piece being made by Troy for a site-specific location in the US. So this will come up as well as color and culture, as well as working with culture or across cultures and considering color in those ways. So I invite you, Sean and Petra, to maybe bring us in, tell us a little bit about your work, about your theories on color, and what it's been like to work on this project.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm Sean.
And I'm Petra. And we have a studio that is based in Chicago, and collectively we are known as Luftwerk. And our practice deals mostly with light, color, and space. And we want to take you into a brief journey of a short presentation. Bear with us, we are sharing the screen. Oop.
So I guess we need
screen sharing.
Yep.
I don't know if I can do that.
But
Rafi can definitely do it from her side, I'm sure.
So our studio has been around for about, let's say, 20 years. Or we've been together collaborating as artists for 20 years. And color and light has sort of been our medium for the past 10 years, I would say. So we're trying to still share our screen here.
How does an artist, or in this case, a duo, begin to work with light and color? How did you make that decision?
You know, we met actually in the performance art department, and we liked all the scenic elements that are part of like performative activities, and slowly removed ourselves out of the performance equation and created these spatial immersive environments using sound, temperature, anything that creates a sensorial experience. And through that, we started to go very heavily into video and video mapping, and worked with architectural sites like the Mies van der Rohe Farnsworth House, the Mies van der Rohe Barcelona Pavilion, So really worked diligently with architecture and how architecture changes through illumination. And so that's how we kind of became very fond of spatial takeovers. And during this course of like exploring architecture, we also became very fond of exploring color and color theory. So we started really kind of basic when we started looking into color theory. We looked into Johannes Itten, who used to be a Bauhaus teacher. And, you know, it's the primary color wheel that is exposed to most Western artists of like, how do you mix color, red, blue, and yellow, like primaries mixing into secondaries and tertiaries. So now it would be really nice to share a screen. So,
I will say the first time that we met, so we met in 2010, 9 or 10?
13.
And was it 13? It was the last one. It was the last Beethoven Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I'm so excited for you guys to see it because my mind was just blown. You know, I remember being introduced to your work and looking at the what is it called when you literally outline architecture?
Well, video mapping. So I mean,
video mapping work that you were doing at the time. And I was sitting there going, how is this even kind of possible for an artist to work at this scale with light? And I'm excited to show it off. And I think that's where the excitement came from. And I've seen so much progress ever since. And you've been taking over more and more spaces, and the immersive experience from Chicago that I think a lot of us were part of at the time was really exciting. Okay, it says that I should be able to share my screen. Maybe it's the same from you. You should be able to share your screen now, says Rafi.
All right. No, we're still getting, I think, joined as a participant.
A panelist.
No, we are a panelist, right?
Yeah.
We've made so many promises. I think everyone's like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, this is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so while we figure this out, I think maybe we'll just change format a little bit and come back to you.
Okay.
And wait, it's working?
I don't think so. No, not yet.
So we know, thank you so much. We know we're supposed to give them permission, and we did. There might be a glitch, or we'll try to problem solve it. But in the meantime, let's kind of move forward since we've given that little intro and make everyone wait for it. And then Troy, maybe you could take us into this little tidbit of your practice, and then we can kind of like ping pong back and forth on some of the things that we'd like to talk about.
Oh, actually, we have it now. I'm sorry, Troy.
The moment you give up.
All right.
All right, guys.
Let's see.
I promise it's great.
Let's see.
Share.
Oh, we're just.
Oh, maybe we figure things out before we go ahead.
This is a little crazy.
All right, Troy. Out to you.
Okay. So I'm Troy Makaza, and yeah, I'm a visual artist. I work with silicone infused with paint. So I would say I really started using silicone, I think around 2015 or earlier, and this was because during art school, I used to paint a lot using oil paints, and finishing art school, like after finishing art school, like the cost of using oil paints in bulk was just too much. So, I thought of ways which I can substitute oil paint in thick layers, I would say. And I remember at the time when me and my father used to seal, the bathroom leakages, maybe on a tap or something, using silicone. And it used to, like have this impressions left behind, or left after, like applying them. And so, I thought of, like, what if I mix this material with some sort of pigment or paint, and, just, like have some, like thick textured paint. And so I tried it out and it worked. And so ever since then, I've just been using silicone. And so my work really, I would say, speaks about, like, or I'd say it speaks towards power in a way, be it inequality, or, some power imbalances or balances. And I try as much as possible to use color to sort of show these balances or imbalances. And so I think in my research, I found that there are some colors which really, sort of overpower or overshadow others as much as they seem muted. And so, like, I looked at I looked at the Zimbabwean flag, which is the country I'm from, and it's got, I would say, 4 major colors which really speak out to me, which are green, yellow, red, and black. Though I barely use black in my works. And so, like, with these colors, how I sort of like looked at them is like this. So at primary level, you'd be taught that, green stands for vegetation, and yellow stands for minerals, or, like minerals which are mined in Zimbabwe, and red stands for blood, which was shed for Zimbabwe to gain its independence. And, I try to sort of like, I try to sort of like find myself in those 3 colors as my main colors. So you'd find that for me, green not only stands for vegetation, as the green leaves and, like maize or food consumption, but it even goes deeper into where the vegetation actually grows from or comes from, which is the land. And also yellow, which stands for the minerals. Like there's some literal minerals like gold, which I think sort of like, which I think this color thingy was derived from. And so, like I tend to look at that, in a way of like, okay, so like if yellow and gold stand for minerals, then where are these minerals also coming from, which is again also like the land. And then, like the blood, red, also again, I think still comes from the land. So everything is still coming from land. And then, so I was like, okay, so if those colors, like all are being derived from land, then, I think in a way, it just led me to, like speaking about, I think, social, political, and religious issues, because everything is sort of like interlinked and centered around the land. And I think that is why I sort of like, tend to use these colors broadly in most of my works. I think, yeah, I can go all day about like just those 3 colors, but I think for now I'll pause. Yeah.
Well, I love that you say that, because for those of you who out there who know, we built a gallery with Dzimbanhete, in collaboration with Dzimbanhete Arts and Culture Interactions in 2017. And Dzimbanhete has now been building an arts community and a music community around the space, which is where the Luftwerk project will be coming in as well. and this is exactly what we were thinking about that entire time. I was like, how do we use the color from the land? How do we bring the color from the land into the work itself? And I don't know if it's the experience of being in Zimbabwe that brings you really close to that land, of wanting to pay homage to it or to respect it, or if that's sort of a natural thing that happens with color, which I think Petra and Sean can tell us a little bit about too, of whether this direct connection to the colors of the land come in. And then I know that we have Tare on here as well, who I will invite a little bit later. But one thing that we haven't mentioned yet is this whole project coming in October is very generously supported by the Goethe Institute, who's also a major partner in it and has been helping us realize everything on the ground. So I know she said maybe she won't talk, but we'll pressure her.
Yeah, I would love to briefly touch upon the colors that we are bringing to Zimbabwe. And, you know, the partnership, as Catinca mentioned, with the Goethe Institute holds dear to us also because Goethe was a color theorist. And we really love how he describes color and perception. It goes really into the phenomena, like a very subjective field that inspired a lot of painters at its time and still today. So for him, you know, colors were the children of night and day, of the sun. So as soon as the sun starts to shine, the world becomes visible and reveals its colorful spectrum. And then night comes in and all the colors fade. So it's really kind of this interplay of light and dark that brings forth color. And for him, the color closest to light is yellow. I mean, it's the sun, it's how brighter can it be? And it's also the night, which is the dark blue. So for him, darkness was blue, lightness was yellow. And those are the two colors we would like to bring to Zimbabwe and to this project with Catinca. And we are talking about a project that is solar powered by the sun. So really using the color of closest to the light, yellow, and also kind of like the darkness. So you will have a space that is heavily influenced by very traditional African architecture. It will be a very modified type of hut that we are building together with the Dzimbanhete Arts and Culture team and Catinca. And it will be meant as a community, for a community to come together to power up, which is a very practical sense of power up in a way that you can actually power your phone. You can plug into a solar system, a solar panel system. You can experience a light art exhibition within that space, and you can come together and just gather. So we hope that space that will be coming forth will be used by the community for celebrations.
And this program really ties to it, because our next talk next month is about space as a place for community gathering. And the one after is about spirituality's role in the urban landscape. So, you know, we've talked a lot together, obviously, about the meditative aspect of the space, about the healing aspect of the space. And I think that will be really interesting to connect to light and sound, and how those things play together on the human psyche. Yeah, it's been a discovery. How's our screen sharing going?
Let's see.
Let's see. I think,
Here
shall we
go.
try?
We should. Yes.
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 Okay.
Sure.
Thank you everyone for being patient with us on this. And I guess we'll start our presentation. Here you see sort of a pixelized image of a color wheel. And, you know, we're not painters. So this was a project of ours that we did where we actually painted panels of color, and it was a democratic process of choosing colors and how colors compare to each other, interact with each other, also with our visual sort of subjectivity of how we perceive color. And this piece was called Shift.
And it was inspired by the very basic color mixing theory. And we used this color wheel and kind of pixelized it and fabricated 529 colored tiles. And since we are coming out of video mapping, we then video mapped these painted squares. And through video mapping, we discovered that there's this fantastic interplay between color and light. So when you illuminate a red painting with red light, it becomes very vibrant red. But if you throw blue light onto a red painting, it will shift into purple. So while we have a static painted canvas, through the lighting, it becomes a very dynamic surface. And that kind of like this kind of finding has been haunting us since today.
Right, the interaction of color and light is just, it's a dominant theme for us, and the toolage that we use for it as well. Lighting on color, so you have this additive and subtractive process of color. And painting was sort of this amazing tool to use, not only having lighting, but also painting and like mixing color and really getting down into the paint. So as I said earlier, we're not painters, but we really use this in conjunction with lighting. So it's a relationship and a sort of a complementary installation we created there.
And jumping to last year, 2020, within the COVID restrictions, and we developed a piece for an exhibition in Switzerland, which was titled Total Space. So the idea of what is a total space. And we went back into the Renaissance, where there was this painter, Alberti, who kind of created the theory, how do you create dimensionality out of a flat surface? So perspective, he really kind of formulated how to create perspective in painting. And through this kind of theory of his, we looked into two colors, also again, yellow and blue, which are now our favorites. And for the Renaissance painters, those were the most predominantly used color schemes. So we created a room that had two opposing painted walls with one color and the other color, vice versa, expanding outward.
So we use Naples yellow as a sort of the foundation yellow, and the blue is
Berlin blue.
Berlin blue. Here's another, and we also had lighting interact with this as well. So the pattern would coalesce, would ebb and flow, foreground, background, midground, and sort of you were in this static room, but the color lighting made it seemingly move
and expand.
Yeah. So you can see the color lighting affect the painted colored walls.
And
what are the two monitors hanging on the sides?
Those are lighting. Those are the lighting elements, actually. So they used fluorescent lighting, color shifting fluorescent lighting to interact with the painting walls. So that's the lighting rig you see above the installation.
So as the pieces or as the space illuminates, basically those walls appear to be breathing, like as if those squares or these rectangles kind of expand and contract. And last year, we've also been artist residents at the Mattress Factory in Pittsburgh, which is a fantastic artist-run space. And they were totally on board with creating an immersive, dedicated space with us. So for Pittsburgh, we created a very kind of two-square scenario using warm and cool colors to morph your experience of a spatial perception.
And using the geometry of the rooms, we created these sort of one-point perspectives. And the interesting thing about these two projects, the one in Switzerland and Pittsburgh, is that that's during lockdown COVID that we generated these concepts, but also implemented them with the build team, with the fabricators and the painters. So it's very interesting to translocate your ideas and color themes and concepts to, other people, and seeing how that would get sort of transcribed, translated to.
And so you didn't travel to these locations in order to realize them. You had to virtually do it.
For the Switzerland, yes. For Mattress, that was a half and half. That was like 50% online, and then we went in person
to do the painting. With a painting crew.
But sort of the build, the conceptual build was done sort of,
before we came.
Yeah. I think we have a video of this one. Or we have a few more.
And had you seen the spaces before? Had you been inside of them?
We saw it with a previous exhibition.
Right, as visitors, we've been to the Mattress previously, and then we did see the installations in this location before it, but it was hard to sort of like physically wrap your head around a room that hasn't been built, but you're building the schematics for it.
That's the video.
There was also a sound piece attached to the installation, very minimal tones. So each room was affected by the color lighting, but they also became similar at a certain color lighting sequence.
I can just imagine my body like moving through this and like my skin changing color. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea was, or is, the piece is actually on view until November. And what we really love about this color light effect is that you kind of make surface appear and disappear and shift. So we wanted to play off like, how do we shift the limited dimensions of a space.
I think that the title really refers to that open square where we take two square rooms and really open it up so the walls appear to be shifting and your perspective seems to be shifting. There's a sense of perspective moving. With the color lighting, you also have sort of foreground, midground, background scenarios.
That's amazing to think about, that we're watching this video and essentially we're really inside of only two squares.
Right.
But our eyes I can't process that thought. For me, there's all of this nooks and crannies and transparencies.
Yeah, I mean, the video actually, it's a fairly good video of the actual experience, but it's really hard to capture that phenomena of seeing light with color. So it's a little different when you see it in person, obviously, and has a very different feel to it to be in the actual space. There are also moments within the lighting where the lighting intentively kind of blows out all the entire painting, so you're in pure color.
Yeah, so there's no geometry, there are no walls. It's really just a space, almost ephemeral space. It's very interesting to see lines sort of just coalesce with shapes and become like one single shape, one single wall.
And how long is this sequence?
Good question. I think it's a 3-minute sequence. So the sound and the lighting sort of run parallel with each other, and we use 6 different colors for each room. And so we use 6 tones to sort of denominate the colors. So it runs on the basic scale of notes, and it shifts up and down. really wanted to create this heavy tone and a light tone to go with the sort of warm room and the cool room. So there's always this combination, this dichotomy of sort of color and sound, high sound, warm colors, low sound, cool colors.
Yeah, I can't tell if I feel like I'm underwater
Mm-hmm.
or if I feel like I'm dreaming. Troy, how does this look to you as like a first time seeing it?
Yeah, it's really immersive, because like actually I think it's hard to explain because like all those colors are just like changing all of a sudden, and like your senses are in shock, and like you're not really like, yeah, in a way I think like you're surprised and happy at the same time. It's like drinking hot and cold water at the same time. It really confuses like your senses, but in a very fun way, I think. And it's really, it's really intriguing.
I love
And to our
that.
audience too, please like write those reactions in there if you want to, and we'll read them out loud. It's really fascinating to kind of see this like first impact. Even though we don't get to have our bodies in there, but we're almost so used to it. The pandemic, I think our eyes even work better with the screen now. So the mattress factory, you worked with a team, you put up the project, and then this was happening essentially, I believe, in the summer. So the public was able to come in?
We opened in March, but it was this year. So, but it was still under lockdown, and I think it was time ticketed events, and then soon after they opened it up to the public, and I think they're going through full open, admission at this point. So it'll be up until November with 4 other artist residencies within the mattress factory. So it was an amazing team to work with. They're artists themselves, the crew. And we worked with painters. So they taught us quite a few tricks because, like I said before, we're not painters, but we love the idea of color interaction with lighting, and painting is the direct application on the wall was just amazing to work with.
And Troy, you typically are creating the work and placing it on the wall, right? Have you worked with the color of the wall itself before?
Not really. So mostly the thing is when I'm working, I usually work on the ground and like on the floor, and so I think it really interacts more with the floor. But then like when it comes to the walls, there's I think it might be 2 pieces which I made, and they were sort of like really like interacting with the walls. But like my work, I think it can really go on any place or on any surface, because the idea of working on a canvas was was the first thing I think, which also like gave rise to my practice in a way. So the thing is, with silicone, it doesn't really stick to many surfaces. I tried working on canvas, I tried working on board, but it would still peel off. And so like I thought of giving up, but then I was like, okay, wait, this might actually be a strength, like of it not working on a surface. And so it means that it maybe like if it was possible to like just to suspend it in air, yeah, I would have been doing that, because like it's sort of like refusing to go on many surfaces. And yeah, so I think for me it's more of I think the journey for me is sort of like like going into the unknown, because, you know, 1 minute I'm hanging on the wall, the next on the ground, and the next I'm dipping it into resin, and I don't know like where I'm going. It's a journey. Yeah.
And speaking of the unknown, so Troy and I have been working on a project that's quite far away. It's in California, and it's site specific, but on a site that neither of us has seen. And this was an interesting thing that I wanted to bring to both of you, and we'll start with Troy. But this idea of working with color and how you make those choices when you enter both a space and a culture that you are generally unfamiliar with, right? Troy, you haven't been to the States. Petra and Sean, you haven't been to Zimbabwe, and yet we're doing this exchange where the works are traveling kind of ahead of each of us, and then landing and being finessed. And so I wonder if, Troy, you could tell us a little bit about what it felt like, or what the process was to make a piece for an unknown space and a little known culture.
Okay. So I would say for my work, I try, or actually like I'm in the process of trying to make it to speak Shona, you know, like so that when someone sees my work, they can sort of, you know, like understand or pick up a few words, but in Shona, even though like they don't understand Shona. I've got my own reasons, yeah, good reasons actually. But anyways, so like when I was working on this project, I was looking at, you know, Facebook as a hub of communication, really, and how it has evolved over the years, because I think I started using the application in 2009, and in Zimbabwe, or rather in you know, like in my community, you'd have people sort of going like, no, you know, these applications are ungodly, you know, like that's religious now, you know, like it's a trap once you get into them, because it's like people sort of like are afraid of what they don't understand until they, you know, start using them and understand how maybe progressive that can be. And so like when I was looking at this project, so I was thinking of how I would sort of want or how I would, you know, like have someone you know, sort of like okay, like how I would try to sort of like make an impression the first time, and how to start a conversation really, because I think this is really what's more important as like when it comes to, you know, communication. How can I speak about what I face every day, and also someone in the US sort of like try and find you know, like some similarities, you know, like maybe it might be, okay, like first of all, I don't know how things work in the US, but then like in Zimbabwe, you know, like maybe the transport system can have a lot of, you know, like congestion, you know, like cars, you know, not moving, you know, like, yeah, like really properly. And so I'm trying to, you know, like speak about these things, and then also hope for someone maybe who sees the work to also sort of like relate to these things, because at the end of the day, it's I think it's about humanity in a way, like how, because we all feel the same thing, we all sort of like have some structures which are similar, like maybe be it a family or be it you know, like, so I was just looking at all those things and just trying to fuse them all at once. So it's a really multi-layered work. I don't know, should I maybe show it right now, or
Yeah, we'd
get
love
to
that.
part?
No, please do.
Okay, so yeah, screen sharing now.
And to give everyone a sense, this piece is on 3 walls where each wall is about 18 feet. So it's enormous. About halfway through the project, Facebook called us and said, actually, we were wrong about the size of the walls. They're this big. And Troy was amazing and expanded the piece and essentially almost tripled it in size.
So I'm using my phone. Okay, it might take some time to load because it's a very huge file. Let me see. All right, there we go. So this is like how it will look when it all comes together. And I was sort of like trying to make it into, you know, like this sort of like maps with different textures and colors onto them. So I'll just wait for it to load. And as I was saying earlier on, so like the main colors which I work with are green, yellow, and red. But I try to, you know, like tone some of them down. For instance, like in this case, the red will be pink. But we all know that like if you add some white to red, then it becomes pink. So it's still red. And also like the grays are, you know, like all those colors which are mixed together. And really that's just, you know, like my palette, which I tend to use. And these sort of like represent some, okay, like I usually like people to relate to the work first and then tell me what they see or how they feel about it before I tell them, you know, like my mission. So I'll just scroll it a bit faster because it's really long, just so you can get a sense of. So that's the end of part 1, and then this is part 2.
So part 1 is really much softer, much
It's really
sweeter.
much softer. Exactly. And then now here it starts becoming bittersweet now. And so, you know, like sort of like these tied up knots, I would say actually rows, because I would say I was thinking of, you know, like how social ties can be like, and I'm just trying to imagine, you know, like all those knots just tied in different knots, random knots, some all thought of, and so like that would be speaking to the social side of how things work, I would say.
And then it gets
then
bright.
And then it gets bright.
It's funny because this color right here really relates the yellow and the blue relationship to exactly what Petra and Sean were talking about, and that relationship of night and morning and what they're bringing to Zimbabwe.
Yeah. And also again, as you know, I barely use blue in my works, and having to have blue here, that's sort of like a foreign invasion, I would say, in colors. And yeah, and also purple. I barely use green, and I barely use blue and purple. So
and did this have
like,
anything to do with America, or did it have to do with the size of the work? What happened?
Well, you know, like, so like the work is multi-layered, I would say. And as much as blue is a foreign color in my work, I would still say it would have something to do with adjusting to change, or like acceptance to, you know, like to those new ideas or ideologies. You know, like how would you accept someone saying maybe the color yellow to them, or maybe like in their culture speaks about death, while like in your culture it sort of like speaks about birth. And so like how would you receive that in a way? So I think that's why I was really using some of those colors, different ideologies. Okay, and so it will be like a map, really, you know, like with different puzzle pieces and stuff.
It's stunning. Is there anything political in your work, Troy? Put you on the spot or anything, but
I would say everything is political, really, not just in my work, but in life, because everything sort of like has some sort of like influence on how the turn of events can become in a way. Okay, so like for instance, let's say the price of eggs goes up, you know, that also influences how maybe like the, you know, like how maybe a businessman would like his diet, what he would eat, will he still be able to afford them, or like can the general person still be able to afford that? Or, you know, like if
and what happens to the price of
the,
chickens because of it, right?
yeah, exactly. And then here the works, you know, like the work just turns rotten.
It's funny you use the word rotten because I immediately went to like the layers of the earth.
Yeah.
So both kind of complementary and opposite thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. And so like on top there'll be another piece.
Oh, wow. An island.
Yeah, it's an island. So also like you'd see that the same colors which were on the main piece are also like on this side. So I think as much as we think that like we're sort of like, you know, like 5 different continents, there's still some things which I believe as much as they are going on in Africa, like maybe at some point in time, there were also, you know, like similar things going on maybe in Asia or in the Americas. Yeah, and like that's the strong red. So yeah, I think that's the end of the
Well, I think I'm going
piece.
to throw this exactly what I did to you. I'd like to do to Petra and Sean and ask you for your reactions to Troy's work. Because I think this is it's definitely the first time you've seen this piece.
It's pretty impressive. It's very impressive. I think the word that you said was mapping, and I think there's geography, there's geology, there's social aspects to it, but there's also networking, like with the lines and how they sort of interact with each other, interweave. So there's this idea of interweaving, and that could be, for lack of a better word, social networking, but also sort of societal networking, where like how cultures interweave and like, do they represent each, is there a color, they're all mixing together, they're all sort of knotted together. And just the idea of geography and sort of creating these islands, and like the blue that you just showed there was like that's water, that's lake, that's sort of, and we could all sort of understand that in a way. So there's this idea, and it's a journey too, because it's massive, it's impressive, and you're going from some sort of a micro to macro to zooming out to sort of almost satellite imagery in a way. So there's this, it's a never-ending sort of gears in your mind, really sort of deciphering the line and the lineage of each stroke, and the textures are just, they go from really sort of wide strokes to very sort of detailed texture, and I think that journey is amazing as well. So it's a beautiful piece, Troy. Amazing.
And can you guys,
Yeah.
sorry, go Troy.
No, like you can go ahead.
I just, because we have about 10 minutes left. So before, I want to open it up to the audience for a few minutes, but I don't want to miss what you guys want to tell us about this experience of making a work for Zimbabwe, with the idea that you will go there when at least the bones of it are built.
I mean, this is part of the making right now. So, meeting each other also virtually helps. Both of us have never been to Africa before, so this is a big adventure into many unknowns. So, meeting you, Troy, is really fantastic, and also communicating with Tare from the Goethe Institute Harare and meeting Chico with the Dzimbanhete Arts and Culture. So kind of building these relationships with people on site is what makes this journey interesting and kind of leads us into an actual experience. Of course, we've done research of like, what is African architecture? It's so rich. How is this built? How do people build? How can we kind of tap into a very local tradition and work with local tradition and bring a new perspective into that local tradition, maybe, or find a synthesis.
Collaboration. We're all collaborators.
Come together.
Yes.
And even what you are talking about, Troy, about yellow in your work, and for you, yellow is the earth, and looking a lot about where pigments come from in the earth, and the ochre, and ochre being like the source of the yellow. So it's kind of nice to expand about the idea of like yellow is the earth, yellow is the sun, yellow is the light. So kind of like tapping into your perception of color in your culture, and how we kind of like meddle into this in a way, and kind of like find a symbiosis of like, I totally would like to talk with you about blue. So, but maybe that's a separate conversation between the two of us. But there's so much to learn. I'm grateful for these virtual dialogues, and I actually can't wait for the next one, Catinca. I think it's really exciting.
So as promised, I'm actually going to invite Tare to come in as well, because in the end, she and the Goethe Institute made this possible, right? It was really a dream for us to do it. And Petra and I actually had this conversation with Tare, and she was just like, yes, let's go, let's do it. And that is in the arts, I think one of the best gifts that someone can give you, to kind of allow you to make your dreams come true. So hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I was not prepared for this.
I told you I was going to trick you.
Yeah. You got me. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the few minutes. I think I'm supposed to, because it kind of switched off when you were talking, to change me to a panelist. So I missed that. But I know you wanted me to kind of touch on why we decided to support this, correct?
Yes, but you can trick me. So you can tell us whatever you feel most engaged with from this whole experience.
Okay. I When we started, what kind of drew me to the project was the fact that it was a combination of both art and sustainability, in the sense that with the panels and the solar and bringing that into it, just intrigued me a lot, especially when looking at our country and what we're going through in terms of electricity and just access to power in itself. So that drew me a lot to the project. And then when I went to Dzimbanhete, which was my first visit about a few weeks ago, seeing the space then kind of just brought it all to life, and made it very exciting for me, in the sense that I can't wait till you guys actually come and we start seeing how this grows and develops and how it will fit into the space. So for those that haven't been, it's like you're taken out of what I'm trying to think what the right word would be, but it's like you're taken out of what you're used to. So you see your more traditional looking architecture, and then it becomes very contemporary and very different. And just the combination of having both in one space, I think as you can see, I was struggling with the words, was a bit mind-blowing for me. So now seeing what you guys are going to do in the space to add to it, I think would be an absolute experience, especially for those that don't necessarily have access to contemporary art. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. I could go on.
No, I think the first time I left or I arrived, I don't know when it happened to Zimbabwe, but it's specifically at Dzimbanhete. I remember just sitting there and being like, I'm in an alternative reality, right? It's a different pace, it's a different aesthetic, it's a different smell, and it's so, you know, obviously from New York where I was coming from at the time, but also from Harare, right? There's this
Yeah.
really little space that you put between.
Completely agree. And I mean, I went with a colleague from work I think she's actually listening, and she was also just kind of taken away because she's an accountant and she loves numbers and things like that. So then being taken into this space where it's very different from what she sees every day kind of changed things for her a bit. So I'm really looking forward to it.
We have Alessandro on our, Tara, please stay with us. But we have Alessandro in our audience raising a hand, which I don't know exactly what that means, but I believe it means that he has something to contribute, and we'd love to let you do that. So Rafi, if you could make Alessandro a panelist so he can say hi, that would be great. And one of the reasons why, just for you guys, before I had brought up politics, we had a question from the audience about the political role in the work. So obviously Troy answered it, but if Petra and Sean, I'd be curious to know if politics enters your work as well.
I'm actually...
It has to do with color, right?
I mean, like Troy already stated, in a way, everything is political. Every action we do impacts the life that we live and the surrounding that we live in. So I think, you know, even though we don't want to call our work political at all, we do hope it has impact to the communities that experience it, and to promote a change for connectivity. So I think that's really kind of where we feel our work can have its strength within the public, to connect.
Soft politics.
Yeah. So, but it's not really like we want to touch on humanity. So.
Alessandro, do we have you? I know that I think we lost him, you guys. But it was a nice thought. What should we leave in our last 2 minutes? Anything we'd like to leave with?
I would love to say thank you to you all. It's been really a pleasure to join this conversation and to meet Troy. Tara, thanks for tuning in too. We can't wait to meet you in person.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet you guys too.
Yeah. I have a question for Troy. How long will that piece be up in San Francisco? Is it a permanent installation? Oh, wonderful.
It's permanent.
Excellent.
You have to go.
Yeah, we're going.
We're actually working on it now because Troy will go and assist with the installation as well, which really allows me to breathe easier because it's so enormous that there's nothing like having the artist there for the install. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Go on.
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, like it's been really great. Also, like, you know, hearing from the Luftwerk team, you know, like and also like that piece which they showed the video, which was really like immersive in a way. And I mean, also like as someone who works with color, you know, like getting to experience you know, like that type of you know, like vibe, you're like, okay, yeah, this is really mind-boggling. And yeah, and I really love how these guys work with light, like, yeah, like big time.
And actually, Troy, you'll be able, if the plans work and we can plan it, the show at the Mattress Factory is up until November, you guys said, right?
Yep.
So I think we'll all have an opportunity to see it on stateside.
Yeah, I would really love that. And yeah, I'll be taking selfies and stuff. Right? Yeah, I'll be in it.
Like, remember when it was just the screen?
Yeah.
But I invite